Welcome to Musician Profiles Celebrating Racial Diversity, a monthly video series of the International Conference of Symphony and Opera Musicians, otherwise known as ICSOM. I'm Doug Rosenthal, and I'm the Associate Principal Trombonist with the Pittsburgh Symphony. And today, we're joined with Jauvon Gilliam, the Principal Timpanist of the National Symphony. Hi, Jauvon.
Hey, Doug, thanks for having me. It's really great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm really glad we're able to make this happen. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
I'm just a brother that enjoys playing drums, man. Like having the job that we have, being able to do what we do, being musicians, being able to spread joy and cheer to the world, to people through music it's the best job on the planet. And it's one of the best suited jobs for me. I love being a music maker. I love doing it in the nation's capital. Being in DC is great. I've been here for about 15 years now. In addition to playing in the symphony, I taught at University of Maryland for 14 years, and I have a small business that keeps me busy. And I am married to a beautiful woman and a beautiful daughter. We have a very grumpy 15-year-old Tibetan Terrier, and that is my life in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. Um, and by the way, I haven't really ever talked to you about this, but I'm curious to know more about the small business that you referenced.
Yeah, I mean, I rent musical instruments and provide services, staging, anything that has to do with a concert uh, to organizations throughout the East Coast at this point. It used to be just the DMV, but now it's up and down the East Coast. So if your favorite, pop artist is just, for example, let's just use, for example, Snarky Puppy. We all love Snarky Puppy, right? If they come into town, oftentimes groups like that don't bring their own equipment, or they might bring a few pieces of equipment. And in every large market, there are companies that provide amps, keyboards, drums, staging, mics, monitors, inner monitors, and et cetera, to these groups, along with the technical services to help produce these as well. So I have a company that does that, and I love it. Business is interesting to me. It's definitely filled up a good portion of my time, but at the end of the day, I do enjoy it almost as much as playing timpani. Not quite, but it's along the same level. So yeah, so capital percussion is what it is, and yeah, it's my second passion.
That's awesome. Have you gotten a chance to meet any of the big artists that you've, rented equipment out to?
I have a lot of them, for us because we live working at the Kennedy Center. A lot of these people come through anyways, and so I would see people just being in the Kennedy Center, like these types of people, even before I started the business. Now that we have to work closely with these people, I do get to see quite a bit of them. My team gets to see them all the time, and they love that. It's one of the huge perks of the job. Victor Wooten, one of the most legendary bass players on the planet. I got a text
Yes.
in our app from one of the people on our team 2 days ago, dropping off some stuff at a location. He's like, one of the best perks of this job is that I get to rub elbows with these people, and I just had a conversation with Victor Wooten. My life is complete. And so, like, that's the
I
thing,
love it.
So when you get to meet people like that and your idols, musical idols, it's pretty cool. So. Mhm.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, we've got a list of questions for you. Shall we get down to it?
Let it rip.
All righty. The first one we wanted to ask was, what was the first time you heard an orchestra live? Or it doesn't have to be live. Just when's the first time you heard an orchestra?
Hi, that's I've never been asked that question. Wow. So I grew up playing piano and used classical music to fall asleep to when I was a kid. Didn't really know what I was listening to um, for a while there. And I do remember the first sort of first two CDs that were musically related that kind of pointed me in this path. And the first was a CD of Vladimir Ashkenazy playing Rachmaninoff's piano concertos. I forget the orchestra, but it was a deck recording, and I was like, "This is great." And that was what sort of put me onto my piano track. And then the other recording that I remember, and this was I had no idea what timpani were at this time, but it was Cleveland Orchestra's Brahms One. And for whatever reason, like I just gravitated to the piece itself. And once I ended up going into music and in my college years, I realized that Brahms one was a staple, and so like, and the timpanist at that time on that record is very iconic. And so like that, it's very bittersweet, I guess, in lack of better words, that that was one of the ones that put me on this trajectory for sure.
Awesome. And I actually think I know which recording you're talking about with Ashkenazi. I think that was the Concertgebouw.
Could
Because
be. Yeah.
my hometown library had that. I can picture it.
Could be. Yeah.
um, well, awesome. Um, and so you said you started playing the piano. That was your first instrument.
Correct. Yeah.
And what was your age when you started playing piano?
Yeah, it was probably seven. We grew up broke. So my parents, what they did it to, it was always a sacrifice. And so my dad and mom found somewhere an upright, like a mid-level upright, and they put it in the house, got it tuned up, and like they every day after school was practice piano, and that was the beginning of it. So from seven up until my sophomore year in college, it was all piano all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. So, what pieces would you say you made it up till like when you were in that final year? What were you working on?
Yeah, the last pieces that I remember working on was Gershwin's Concerto in F, and um, that's the one that comes to mind. I know there were some etudes, some Chopin etudes, and a couple Rachmaninoff preludes that I remember, but that could have been a few years earlier. But I remember the last one that I actually had, the last piece of music that I remember ordering that had to come in the mail was Concerto in F. And I think I got
Wow.
about a halfway through the first movement, and then everything pivoted. I met my teacher for percussion. I decided to change majors. Like I still remember very specifically like the cutoff, uh, between piano and percussion, at least for me.
When you're playing that piece in the orchestra, do you know the like rehearsal number that you made it to? Like, do you think like this is as far as I got?
I don't know about the rehearsal number, but I definitely like I play. I was just talking about this with the assistant timpanist here, Scott Christian. Like a lot of times, as your assistant trombone, when they're concertos, the principal will take them off, right? For the second
Mhm.
half or whatever the case may be. I like to play the piano concertos because it takes me back. This week we're doing Beethoven 3, the piano concerto, and like I'm doing it. I could 100% have not done it, but like for me, I don't know what it is, but no, I do know what it is. It's that whole nostalgia. I want to be on stage. I want to experience that. It's the best part about being a timpanist, at least in my mind, is that when I play, it's important, and I play enough that I don't sit around and twiddle my thumbs. But there's enough downtime on stage where I can sit and absorb and enjoy what my colleagues are doing around me. And so it's like the best of both worlds for me that I get to give the juice and receive the juice at the same time. It's great.
I'm thinking Beethoven has such great timpani parts. So
Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
is that true for the concertos as well?
Yeah, I mean, Beethoven was one of the revolutionary pivot points for timpani, for sure. Still a lot of dominant and tonic, still a lot of five ones and maybe a four in there every now and then. But he wrote so well with the trumpets and Beethoven 9 with the trombones. He wrote so well that it was just the evolution, a part of the evolution. And he was the one that sort of took it to the next level, the first one that sort of took it to the next level. So
I love hearing about this. So you started piano, and then you said you pivoted to percussion in college, but did you have any
correct.
percussion prior to college?
Very little. I so my intro to percussion was in youth orchestra in high school. I was the pianist for my youth orchestra. My dad, again, we went to the neighboring white community to be in the county youth orchestra. Uh, all through whatever. I think it's probably my last 3 years of high school, and I was a piano player. There was a Christmas concert, and back then, youth orchestra, you rehearse 20 weeks for like one concert, right? You know how it goes, right? And so
Mhm.
we were rehearsing, and we were playing um, Leroy Anderson's A Christmas Overture, which we all know. There's no piano, but there was no percussion or timpani. And the cello coach, never forget this, the cello coach came up to me. I'm sitting there not doing anything, says, "Do you want to play timpani for this piece?" Yeah, man, sure, whatever. So they give me the music. I go over there and I sit around the timpani, and I kid you not, Doug, my first experience playing timpani. The opening of that piece is there's G's and C's. Because I'm a piano player, I played it in treble clef, so I tuned it to E's and A's. Wrong clef. And that was my introduction to timpani. And it's a funny story. It's a nice anecdote now. And I can't say I was hooked then, but that was my first intro to percussion. So was playing timpani and treble clef. It's great.
I mean, even if the pitches were wrong, I'm sure you were given the energy.
Energy and the juice were there, but it was very much entertaining. It's great.
Well, you can't have it all. But
Right,
I'm
right.
curious. I'm curious which youth orchestra was that?
Northwest Indiana Youth Orchestra. So they used to rehearse, as far as I know, and they used to rehearse in Munster, Indiana. I'm not sure
Okay,
where they rehearse now, but they're still around. So I still see posts on Facebook from whatever concerts and whatnot. So they're still around.
I see. I when I was studying in Chicago, I would play with the Northwest Indiana Symphony. Are they related at all? Or
They are related. And fun fact, when I was a senior in college, that was my very first timpani audition. Uh, Very first senior in college, and I was runner up. And I remember that. I know the person that won. He's a great player. I think he's still there. But I remember that, and the music director there. Do remember him and his hair. Kirk
Kirk
Muskrat. I
Muskrat?
do.
Yes.
I do. I do. So yeah, so they are all, it's the same. I think they're under the same thing in the rehearsals, and we're in the same building. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Those red chairs. I'll never forget them.
I remember at least when I was playing with them, the community really turned out for the concerts.
Great. Yeah.
Um, so did you feel that the youth orchestra also had that support?
Man, I don't remember the turnouts. I mean, before we started this, I was telling you about my kids' recital and how you go to these things when they're young and you go to support your kid, no matter what the quality or the outcome of the performance is. I gather that that's what this was. But it was a pivotal thing for me. The music director of the youth orchestra is someone I still keep in touch with now. So like it definitely was a very important part of my musical journey. So I hold NIYO really near and dear to my heart for sure.
Well, that's awesome. And the next question I was going to ask is actually if you had a particular moment in your musical upbringing that inspired you to pursue this professionally, would you say that there were moments in Northwest Indiana that did that,
The
or was
moment that
that
comes to
later on in
mind is,
college?
yeah, the moment that comes to mind, again, very stereotypical. I'm sure I'm not the only person that said this, but the first time I played Host of the Planets, I was hooked. I was hooked. So for me, that was, Mars and the Bringer and all the energy. For me, that was great. I don't know if you just saw that right here. My kid comes checking in. She's so nosy. It's great. Uh,
She's welcome to
uh,
join us.
nah, she just left out, but and she knows,
Oh,
she
okay.
knows, but she
Well,
she
if
she's
she
great
comes back, as far as we're
for
concerned,
sure. Right, right. Host of Planets was it for me. And I was like, this is baller, this is dope. And I was hooked after that. So yeah, that's what it was for me. So doing that in
and
Butler, my school's symphony orchestra concert. That was my sophomore year. I was like, that's it. I'm down. I'm in. I'm locked in, loaded. That's it.
mhm.
Mhm.
And yeah, I didn't ask which college. So it was Butler University.
It was Butler in Indianapolis. Yeah. Mhm.
So did you play like the full piece, or did you? It was just the
Whole
movements
thing.
that you mentioned, or
I was the whole thing. It was Mars, and
Mhm.
then Jupiter is great. Of course, Uranus is a giant timpani solo, and I probably played it very bad. But like for me, it was just like having that energy. And now that I'm older and can look back, and you're asking me these questions now, like when I'm 44, it's different, right? And so it's like understanding working with people and how you communicate with people. There's no cubicles in what we do, right? There's no like separation. It is, in it to win it, right? And so using that in life, in marriage, in business, like all that connects, like being able to breathe with somebody, being able to see somebody move their bell, or being able to know how to communicate without necessarily talking, is these are life skills. These are life skills, right? And you learn those life skills being in an orchestra.
so you did the planets of Butler, and then after Butler, what's next?
Yeah, so Pittsburgh connection. My teacher at Butler, the
Oh,
teacher at Butler, still there, studied with the former timpanist in Pittsburgh, a black guy named Tim Adams. Tim
uh-huh.
Adams, I met Tim through my teacher at Butler. My teacher at Butler's name is John Craviel. So through John, I met Tim. The minute I saw Tim in his suit, his fancy car, bald head and his glasses. I was like, I want to be like that guy. So John put me in touch with him, and Tim was he was a nurturer. Like he was like, yeah, man, like you wanna learn to do this, it's great. And Tim is very good at that. He's very charismatic. And he took me under his wing. And I'll never forget, he invited me to his house when I was a junior in high school or in college, knowing nothing about timpani. And for like, I think it was going to be 3 days or 3 nights, just hung out, went to rehearsals, went to concerts, we went out to eat. He just and it was just like, for lack of just shooting the shit. I don't know if I can say that, but it was just basically like just like being with him. Like, and I think that's what I mean, Doug. Like, if long as you are a good human being, you treat people with respect, right? And then you will find that human connection through all the other stuff. And like 100%, I am here today because Tim was like, I see someone that looks like me that wants to do this. I'm going to go out of my way to give him every opportunity to do that through me. And that's what I try to do with my students. So for me, that was the next step, was to get connected to Tim. And then I went hardcore into timpani, got my master's, and then, got lucky, got my first job in Winnipeg, and 7 years later, won a job in DC. So
Wow. And your master's degree, did you? Sorry if I missed it. Which school was that at?
I went to Cleveland for in Institute for my master's. I didn't finish it because I won a job. I won the
I
job in
see.
Winnipeg. I was there for 6 months, won the job, and then left.
And because Cleveland is what, two hours away from Pittsburgh, did you go down to
Correct.
Pittsburgh regularly?
I did not go down to Pittsburgh then. I was only there for that short period of time. And so I don't think I saw Tim that year I was there, but obviously saw him after that, because driving from Winnipeg back home, and especially I would make trips to Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So I saw him a few times after that before his life transition, and he ended up taking a job teaching in Georgia. So,
Right.
but I did. I've seen him. So I saw him several times after that for sure.
I mean, I've only been in Pittsburgh for a couple of years, but people who have been around a little longer than 2 years, um, Tim is definitely one of those people that comes up in stories. I mean, the guy's a legend. So
He is, and he still is. It's just his personality, man.
yeah,
He's just a big personality and a nice person. Like you combine those, like, and that's how when people talk about you, they talk about you in a way, at least for me, in a way that I'd like to be talked about, when I'm whatever. I think that's important. So yeah, Tim's great. He's the best.
it's definitely how I think about you.
I appreciate that, Doug. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
For people watching, I used to be in the Kennedy Center Opera House Orchestra, which
Right.
is like 300 feet away from the National Symphony. So I've known you for what? When did you win? No, you won a
However
job.
long you've been here. Yeah. However long you were
Yes,
here. So
yes,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
We see each
11
other in the
years.
canteen. Like you
Yep,
said, the Opera House and the NSO, we're very close together, but we often have similar schedules. So it's like ships passing in the night. But
right.
we see each other every night, and it's a unique like space, right? Because the
Mhm.
New York Philharmonic and the Met are in different buildings, so it's just different, right? We're in the same location, so
Right.
we get to actually like commiserate, and I think that's it's great. And everybody seems to get along. Percussion sections for both, we're all good friends, so it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You all are really,
Yeah.
really close. It was always really neat to see. And yeah, that canteen, we all really bonded over that salad bar, didn't we?
That's it, man. Like it's that's the pre-concert meal of the Kennedy Center people is the
Yes.
canteen. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to rewind a little bit. Um, a question we like to ask is,
Mhm.
if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that be?
And I think the first thing that comes to mind be trust yourself. I am always like now, I am my mantra for myself is ready, fire, aim. Like that's just the person I am. I will plan, I will make a decision, and I will do it, whatever it is. And then I'll figure out that didn't work, and I'll pivot and I'll back up and figure it out. But I won't wait before doing something. I will say, this is what I want to do. I won't just jump in blindly. I will prepare and I will do the work, but I won't sit on it. I'm going to do it. And for me personally, I feel like that has worked well for me. Clearly, I've made lots of mistakes. Like I haven't done all of the things perfectly right, and you have to pivot and adjust. But for me, like looking back, yeah, I think that trust your gut, trust your instincts. And I was always surrounded by great people. I just mentioned I was surrounded by great mentors, people that believed in me, people that put me on the right path for sure. But they were also, I'm sorry, this is just the theme today. They were good people, right? They were good people. And so like as a teacher, as an educator, like that stuff 100% seeps into your students. It's not something that you necessarily like teach. All right, let's talk about what it is to do to be a good human being. Open doors for people across the street. Don't jaywalk. It's not like that, right? It's like this, it's just seeps into it every day, every week, every class when you see them. And like that's what I had with John. 100%. I've said it before, I'm the person I am because of him. And of course, he's the person he is because of Tim, and so on and so forth. And so, like, I think that for me, like, trust myself, trust what you do, and know that it's not going to be perfect. But as long as you continue to work hard and keep your eye on the prize, you know, whether that's winning the audition, whether that's being successful in business, whether that's, you know, trying to raise a healthy child or whatever it is, as long as you keep your eye on the prize and know that like you're going to have ups and downs, like, and you keep moving, you'll get there.
That's really beautiful. And yeah, you mentioned that you teach at University of Maryland. Um, I'm sure you're that kind of teacher for your students. Um, I'm curious. Do you find yourself um, saying things or doing things with your studio that you wish were a little more universal? Or is that too lofty of a
No, no, it's not too
question?
lofty. I just feel like it's a little loaded because one of the things I've realized is you can't change people, right? Especially, well, let me rephrase that. Like, as an educator, it is our job to shape the students' lives. And again, that happens more by osmosis than whatever the reverse of osmosis is, re-osmosis, unosmosis. Like it happens organically, right? Versus unorganically. I guess that's the better way to put
Right.
it. And so, like, but as far as like adults and people that believe what they believe, like it's really hard to change them. It's really hard to change people in that way. And so for me, you asked me would I like to see something be universal? I think that like all I can do is what I can do. All I can do is be me for my 15, 20 kids in the studio, or for my 15, 20 employees, or for the four of us in our percussion section, or the 30 of us that are in the with percussion brass. Like my immediate impact circle, I choose to focus on that. And hopefully in turn, we will spread that, you know, that way, as opposed to thinking the overarching people need to be X, or it would be great if the world were X, right? That feels like too much for me. That feels, you know, that feels too big for me. So for me, I prefer to do it in micro steps and make sure that my relationships with my people are good. And specifically, that's my family, that's my team, my business, and my employees, and my coworkers, like my immediate coworkers, my section, right? The drummers and the brass players, right? Like for me, that's it. And if we're good and we continue to do that and share and spread the joy, spread the wealth, whatever you want to, whatever phrase you want to use, then I will die a happy man because I feel like I've done the best I can to make the world a better place with everything that I can do.
Steep. That I
Is
keep
that
using the
too
word
deep?
beautiful, but it's beautiful. That's well, and what I appreciate because I'm also someone who gets easily overwhelmed by thinking about things on a on a national or global
Hmm.
level.
Hmm.
But it's that think global, act local thing.
That would have been the perfect way to say everything I just
Oh,
said, you
well,
know? There you
I
go.
didn't come up with it.
And my wife is a lot like that. Like my wife is like, you know, I want to do the big things to make the biggest impact, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think in order for change, whether that's good change or bad change, like it takes both. It takes the micro and it takes the macro. It takes the small, it takes the big, right? It takes all of it together, right? So if you're excuse me, if you're macro and you want to do the big thing, let's do it. I'm there for you. I got you covered, right? And then I'll do the micro and same thing. You with me, you got me faded. Let's make it work together. You combine those two, and that's how you create the change, right? Right. Whatever that is, or you create the difference, right? Whenever you're talking, we're talking big topic things, but it can be even something as little as like practice habits, right? Or something as little as financial habits, or like how you talk to your spouse, or how you deal with have hard conversations with people. Like it could be it could be a myriad of things. It does not have to be climate change, like something that's giant. It can be something as small as something that's personal to you. I found that for me, that approach works well. looking at it from the micro.
Like a grassroots,
Yeah,
bottom up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Think global, act local, as Doug would say. There you go. Yeah.
Oh, I mean that I think that expression's been around longer than we have.
Well, if
But
next time I say it, I'm giving you the credit because you're the
yeah.
first one I've heard it for. So there you go, right?
Um this has been so awesome hearing all these stories. One more question that we like to ask people, and you've already mentioned the planets, but are there any other any other performances that really stand out for you as life changing or even just fun to think about?
I'm sure you get this question all the time, just like I do. Like that question's asked a whole bunch.
Yes.
And I was just asked that like 2 days ago at the Kennedy Center board meeting. I was the guest, whatever, and I asked me questions. And again, some board member asked me the same thing, and I gave it. And the answer I usually give is I love it all. So when I'm playing at that moment, right? But we're talking to a whole bunch of musicians. They don't want to hear that. Like whatever, I get that. So I can be more specific. I think that for me, the one that comes to mind when you say that, the one is the first and second concert that John Andre Nozeta, who's our current music director, did before he was offered the job. Um, I loved, of course, you love the person that hired you, right? So Eschenbach, Christoph Eschenbach was the person that hired me. I think he was great with a lot of things, like the fact that he oozed music, Doug. Nothing else mattered to that dude but music. Like it did not matter if it was like yes, if something wasn't together or something wasn't in tune, he would mention it and he would do his thing to try to fix it. But at the end of the day, all that mattered is that however much he could squeeze the music out. I love that about Christoph. It was great. And so everything was chugging along. And of course, he said he was leaving. And then, people start looking. I was not on the committee. People start coming in and people start, you hear people. And then this guy comes in we've never heard of. And it was Tchaikovsky's Manfred. So decent, fine, a little repetitive, whatever. Not one of the blockbusters, but it's okay. I like it, Timpani. And I think that was my first time playing, or maybe second. But I remember saying, "Holy moly, this is great!" It just leapt off the page. And so you file that away. I'm like, okay, this guy's good, whatever. Next thing he came back was Rock Two, right? Which of course for most of us musicians, symphony. Most musicians like that it's gorgeous, it's fun to play, it's great, it's the right amount of time, it's like the right amount of length. Like he crushed it, Doug. And I remember after the concert going up to him and hugging him. And I don't do this, but I whispered in his ear and I said, "Hey man, like this was great. I think you will be a great fit for this orchestra. Like things that he brings are the things that we need, you know? I'm like, if they offer you this job, I'd love for you to take it." And now that he's been here for whatever 7 years, the story goes is that they were already interested. And I think like the next day, like they flew to wherever he was, or the next week they flew to wherever he was in whatever country, Tanzania, Maldives. I don't know where these people go, but wherever he was, they flew and they tried to woo him like right then. And so like I think whoever the decision makers were, right, which wasn't me, also saw the same thing that I saw in John Andrea. And he's still here. Like the honeymoon period is, in my opinion, it's not over. He's still great. I love
Yeah, you
Sydney.
all
He'll be
love him.
here. He's great, man. He's clear. He is a good human being. Going back to the same thing, he's a nice person, right? And I think that when you are dealing with an organization of 150 people and 100 type A people, right? We are all type A's because we have to be to work this hard to get a job like this, right? So it's not a negative thing, but we all have a bit of musical ego. Like you know how you want Valkyries to go because this is what you did, and you are justified in that because you've got a killer job, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have to work with 100 people, maybe their Valkyrie is a little different. I'm using Valkyrie because that's the only one I know. Maybe that and Scheherazade. That's all I got for you, bro. Bolero and
Oh, those are
Bolero.
good
So
ones.
after that, I'm out, right? And so like you have to be able to work with these people and like being able to navigate what you as the music director want to 100 people that have egos, attitudes, feelings, thoughts, considerations. And to do that in a way that is received by the majority is tricky. As opposed to, we'll do it. It's our job to do it. It's so like it can happen and it will happen. We will do what we are asked. And most of us would do it without any funk, right? But to be able to do it and understand where he's coming from and to be able to want to do it, that's the special sauce. And there are some conductors that have that. We're just lucky to have one. So he's great.
Yeah.
He's great. Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear you all are still so happy with him. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great, and like like absence makes the heart go fonder, and like I hadn't seen him for a while, and like having come back and being able to see him now, again, still like, yeah, man, top notch, bro. I'm very happy. Yeah.
it has been so fun chatting with you. I mean, we had so many conversations over the years, but I think this is the first time one on one we've like gone in depth with stuff. So I this has
That's
been super
non-canteen. Yes,
awesome.
this has been verse
It's
non-canteen conversation. Yes, it is. Yeah.
there aren't a bunch of
Yeah.
ushers around us trying to get the
Correct.
cauliflower or whatever.
Right. 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 No, I appreciate this, Doug. Like I said, I mean, your reputation precedes you. Every time that I see what you're doing, it's always positive. It's always great. So like I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. And I'm very proud to be a part of ICSOM. I'm very proud to be a part of this community, like this musical community, not just in DC, but like this whole global, national, global community where like it's a small world, man. People talk. People know people. We all know everybody knows everybody. And so like for me, at the end of the day, it's just about, like I said, when I'm on my deathbed, I want to say, I had a life well lived and my kid is happy and my grandkids, maybe my great grandkids, if I live that long, like they're happy and they're healthy. And that's it, man. And I'm out and see you later. Good.
Yeah. You mentioned deathbed. That won't be for like 100 years from now.
There you
But
go. So it'll be great grandkids. It'll be great. So I have a whole bunch of people around. It'll be great. And they'll be like, pop, pop, or pop, 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 or however far he goes. Like, it'd be great. And I'm like, you know what? It was a life well lived, guys. I appreciate it, and, like, I really do mean that. I mean, I'm not, this conversation is turning a little bit about death, but like, I just want to be happy, man. I just want to live a happy life, share, spread good music. And through that great music, we can make the world a better place. That's my goal in life. So if I do that, I'm happy.
I keep using the word beautiful, but that's really beautiful.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
Before we sign off here, anything else you'd like to throw into the mix? Or
No, I think, like I said, man,
I mean, we covered a lot.
we did. So I'm good if you are. No.
Well, this has been great, and thank all of you for joining us for another interview with musician profiles celebrating racial diversity through ICSOM. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Jauvon.